Okay, well, now we're going to talk about agreements and trade secrets. And by here, agreements, contracts, that all means the same thing. We're talking about people or businesses that come to an understanding about sharing information. And there are basically three types. One is an implied agreement that exists because of the nature of the relationship. So all employees are implied by law to have obligations to their employers to protect confidential information. And then we have verbal agreements, a handshake. A couple of people get together, like to do a business deal. It's going to be about this kind of technology or this market opportunity, and we'll agree to keep that secret between us, and they shake hands on it, but there's no writing. And then the third kind of agreement, and the most secure, is one where it's written down. And again, I think as I've indicated, it's the one that you can rely on the most. Certainly, the law will respect implied of confidentiality, but it's not very clear exactly what they are if you don't have a written agreement. And the same thing is true with a verbal agreement. Courts will enforce them if the facts are clear, but if you don't have a written contract, then maybe the recollections of the two parties to the agreement won't be the same, and it'll be a lot harder to enforce your rights. So an agreement around secrecy, a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement, is very important to have a clear understanding between the parties to the contract about what it is that they're trying to protect and what kind of behavior is expected of each of them in the relationship. Interestingly, the existence of the contract is also helpful to you as the owner of the trade secret, because it helps you to prove that you have taken reasonable steps or reasonable efforts to protect your trade secrets, something that a court will always insist that be proven before you can enforce your trade secret rights. So generally speaking, having written agreements is a very important aspect of managing your trade secrets. In fact, if you don't have them, the risk is that you will lose protection for your trade secrets. There are courts that have said, well, in the absence of a written contract, really, you haven't done enough to care for your own trade secrets. And so why should I bother? Why should I insert myself into this? And so judges will sometimes just toss those cases out. So you want to be able to preserve your rights. You also want to have clarity in the understanding with whoever it is that you're sharing. And that's true whether you're giving information or giving access to information to someone, or you're receiving access. Clarity is really important. So you need, any time that you're sharing one way or both ways in a relationship, that you're sharing confidential information, you need to be clear about what it is that you're doing. And the best way to do that is through a written agreement. Now, it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, sometimes the most simple agreements are easily enforceable because it's, the judge can see exactly what the parties intended by looking at a short agreement. I'll give you an example. Back in the 1880s, there was a dentist who came up with the idea for a very bad tasting liquid that he called Listerine. And he decided not to market this himself, and he agreed with another fellow to give him the formula for Listerine. And in return, the person who took on the license for the secret formula to Listerine agreed to pay so much per bottle forever. And this was an agreement that was all of 2 sentences long, entered into in the 1880s. Well, by the 1930s, the formula had already been figured out by other people, had become public. And yet the product, because it was so famous and successful, in spite of its bad taste, had produced literally millions of dollars in royalties to the heirs of the dentist who originally invented the formula. And so the company by that time, Warner Lambert, that owned all of these rights, went to court and said, "Judge, we should not have to pay for this anymore, because what was a secret originally is no longer a secret." And the judge said, "No, you made your deal back in 1883 and you're stuck with it. You have a choice. You can stop selling Listerine if you want, but as long as you're selling it, you've got to continue paying the royalties." Now, what this shows is, first of all, that agreements for protecting a trade secret don't have to be complicated. And secondly, that they're very powerful. So having a written agreement is very important to protecting your trade secrets.